everyone, I'm Captain Logan. And it's time once again. Vince, what do you recommend today?
Today, I'm recommending a frame. Is he kidding? No, I'm not.
He's not kidding.
A buddy of mine gave me this, and it was for Christmas, and thank you, Dave and Roxy. So, they gave me this, and they bought this issue, and it's #1 of the Punisher Volume 1. And it's a terrific miniseries. I highly recommend the miniseries. It's the art is fantastic. The writing is really solid.
Who wrote that?
Stephen Grant, I believe, and Mike Zeck were the Mike Zeck was the artist. Stephen Grant was the writer. That's not how you say that word. So, the thing.
So would you call that one of like the major definitive? If you never read anything else, Punisher, make sure to touch that one.
Yes, I would say that the original mini is the major Punisher thing, and then you have stuff like I would say all of Garth Ennis, and I would say sections of War Journal and Warzone, and
Jason Aaron's Max.
Yeah, and Jason Aaron's Max. Yeah. So the Max series is largely pretty good until you start getting into the minis.
My favorite.
Yeah. I mean, it's really solid, and I love Jason Aaron's Max, Jason. I was almost like The Max by Jason Aaron. I wonder what that would be like.
What would that be like? That sounds really interesting. Yeah,
I would read that. Why not?
Why don't you let Jason Aaron go back and do a lot of Image stuff? That'd be. I think Max was Image. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Anyway.
I don't know. It was on MTV. So
I didn't know that was a cartoon show until recently, and I saw it on Amazon. I was like, that was a thing? Okay.
I've seen the cartoon series. It's not bad. It's a little crazy, but it's intentionally that way. And I've been told that the comic book and the cartoon are very, very aligned.
Oh,
very
really?
similar to each other. I've not read the comic. I've just watched the cartoon.
Cool.
So, am I recommending this? Yes, but it's less about this frame specifically. It's more about this kind of frame that you can get at Michael's. And the reason I say this is go right ahead.
I think this is just wonderful. Wow, why have I not done this yet? This is great.
You can see behind it. And that's what's cool is that the wall shows through it. And what's neat about it is that I'm sure you can go find comic frames that are specifically fit to the comic. They're probably ungodly expensive for how crappy they look. And then, so what you have here is a comic.
Well, they have those ones at Vintage that are like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing, is that this is a nice frame, and it's a cheap frame, and often Michael's I don't know if it's cheap, I didn't buy it. But you can get cheap frames that look a lot like this. And you can go to Michael's, and you can get, often during the year, they'll have, like, serious sales on frames, or it'll be like, all frames 50% off, or buy one, get one free, or something like that, or buy two, get one free, whatever. And these things are great deals. Why? Because this is really tasteful. When you can see a little bit of wall, I mean, as long as you don't have crappy wallpaper or something behind it. But
I think that's almost cooler with the space around it. Again, you have to kind of strategize, make sure that you put it on the right kind of wall. But
and what's nice is that when you hang it, it gives you depth. So it's not just a flat white behind it or a cardboard behind it. It's this is glass on both sides. So it just squishes the comic book, keeps it in pretty good shape, and I mean it's glass, so it's not like you're shoving it between two pieces of plastic that need to be changed out or are going to, brown or whatever, or turn acidic. God forbid.
Yeah, that'll help preserve it.
So
now, do you put it in there without plastic?
They did, and I think I would.
Okay.
Because there's
the light would hit it better. Just assuming that you could be sure that it would preserve it correctly.
I think what I would do is that I would hang this on a wall that's not directly in sunlight, and that's what I've done in my own home, is that I don't, and this is another thing, if you have a lot of comic books that you don't intend to read anymore or that are in pristine condition, you want to keep them that way, and you in your, let's say your storage room, or not your storage room, but your display room doesn't have a lot of sunlight coming in.
Yeah, 5 or 10 leapt to mind as soon as I saw that.
Yeah, so you can see this thing hanging on your wall, and it gives you not necessarily cheap artwork, but artwork you don't have to go out and buy. And because you already have it.
Classy looking artwork, man. I mean, could you imagine somebody who had like a comic book room that had walls with like just 2 or 3 of those spaced out just on each wall? I mean,
Now, my friends Dave and Roxy, they've done this, not necessarily with comic books, but with comic book art. There's some of those in their kids' room. They're 1-year-old. They have some art hung up on the walls that are Marvel characters, those Scotty Young drawings, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And they've hung these things up all around the place, and they use these kind of frames so they kind of look like they're hanging comic books. And I think it's really snazzy looking, and I think what I like the most is that it's not just a flat white behind it, because when you put up a flat white behind it, it kind of looks like you're just trying to frame a comic book. This looks like you're hanging an art piece.
Yeah.
So I recommend these frames. I do recommend this issue, but it's a great issue. It's from a great series. Read this. If you're looking for it in trade, it's called Circle of Blood. So Mike Zeck and Stephen Grant, great people. Well, I don't know. Maybe they're horrible people, but they made a great series. Oh, you guys, stop being terrible people. I don't know. I'm sure they're fine. But, so that's what I recommend.
Vince, that was an excellent recommendation, man.
Well, thank you. So go out there and buy some frames.
Sometimes Vince will bring a thing and I'm like, oh, I should do that. Especially when it's like arts and crafty stuff. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I should do that.
You know, every so often.
You should give seminars at like conventions.
How to be the classy geek.
Yeah, exactly. You know, well, and you know me, I love stuff like that. Like it's so important to me that people that are into the kind of stuff that we're into can separate themselves from the old stereotypes. I mean, even as these kinds of things are becoming and just being a geek in general is becoming more acceptable, I still think that there's a healthy dose of well-roundedness and that you ought to have, and that you don't have to live like a slob just because you're a comic book fan, you know? And I mean, like I think we can. I still think that there are people that can be turned around to being to realizing that maybe it's not that they don't have to be as prudish about comics, even if they don't like them and they don't want to read them, with things like this.
You know, my wife, when our friends gave us that framed comic, my wife went, "Oh, that's totally getting hung up." And that's the thing, though, is that it's a cool-looking piece of art. It's not the only thing that she said when she first saw how I tend to decorate was she said, "I hate posters." And that's not to say that she hates comic art or refuses to have comic art hung in the house, but she says, "I just hate posters. It ruins the piece because the poster says things like, title here, coming out this June, bunch of crap at the bottom because we're mandated to put all this stuff on the bottom." And so then you go for like an art piece, and all it is the art. And
it's the difference between looking like a museum and looking like a comic book store.
Yeah. Because, sure, all of us have that special place in our hearts for those advertisements that came out back in the day. Whatever. You hang up this thing that says, Fear Itself coming out this June, and you go, yeah, sure, I like it because I like the art. But what you can do, if you don't necessarily want to hang a poster, is spend some extra money and get a piece of that art, or even that picture itself, because a lot of them exist.
Yeah.
But virgin art would be what you search for if you're a young comic book fan and you don't know what you're looking for. Well, how do I find the comic book art?
If you're a virgin comic book, that's how you remember it. If you're a virgin comic fan, then you go look for the virgin art.
That's a stereotype, sir.
No, it's not.
No, those exist, but...
in the Virgin Islands.
What do you recommend today, Cap?
Man, like a comic book virgin reading for the very first time. Today, I am recommending the Super Mario chess set. I got this for Christmas from my father-in-law. Thanks a lot, Dad. Father-in-law, you got me some Super Mario chess. I appreciate that. This is a thing that I've been seeing in stores for a few years and always thought it was really cool looking. Now I've got one, and I'll show it to you. Is it weird, Vince, to recommend a thing partly because you just want to talk about the things you don't like about it? I do really like this, and I do want to recommend it, but also I wouldn't just do a review of a thing like this, so there are some things I want to talk about with it. First of all, I think it's kind of neat that we are, to this day, still using the 64 logo.
Oh yeah,
have you noticed that? And I've seen this in other places too. That we've just taken the 64 off the end of that, and that game is so classic, and that logo works so well that we're still using it. I'm kind of surprised by that. That's kind of cool. Okay, so the big question with sets like this, of course, are always twofold. First of all, do the figures look good? And second of all, what were the choices? Figures look great. Choices are bizarre. So that's what I want to talk about. So one thing I really like about this set, here's the first set of pieces. And then I'll show you the second set. I don't know if this will let me do this without them all falling out.
Use the cutout pictures.
I could do that, Vince. That's not a bad idea. Anyway,
inserts, cutouts.
One thing I like a lot about this set is that it has the name of the piece written underneath it so that you know what they are. And I think that's a good idea with a set like this, especially because with a lot of sets, with a lot of chess sets, I don't know if you've gotten novelty chess sets before, but with a lot of these, what you get a lot of the time are just like the symbols for it. And if you're playing with kids or whatever, they're not necessarily going to know what those symbols are. And I'm going to play this with my little guy, and Jason knows how to read, so he'll know what the pieces are. So anyway, I appreciated that just for my own use, but also because some of this is somewhat counterintuitive, and it's nice to be reminded of what it is exactly they are, because some of them don't make sense. So Bowser is a king. Okay, sure.
Yeah. He's King Koopa.
Yeah, of course. Baby Bowser is his king. Bowser Jr. Bowser Jr. is his queen. Yeah, okay.
Hot.
That's that's weird. It gets better. Mario is the king on the other side, Luigi is the queen. We're not even trying.
Oh, behave.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, those are the kind of jokes that you're immediately going to get. I mean, like...
They're brothers.
They're brothers.
That's uncool.
Yeah, it's weird. So,
what
I guess
Peach?
The way we have to look at this is it's not queen in the sense of queens are women and you have a king and a queen. It's, okay, it's just those are the places that like the roles that they're playing for the game. But, you know, it's a game of... roles in a king's court. I don't know why we can't get a little bit closer to that, especially because we have both princesses, but they're both bishops. Okay, all right.
See, what I would do is I would put one of the princesses on the bad side and just put her in chains.
That's hysterical, and I love that. But with what we have here, what I would have done is I would have had Peach, you know, your normal, your more important princess. I would have had Peach be your queen.
Yeah.
And on the other side, instead of having two Birdo knights, make Birdo the queen.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because of course, I don't really know what you do with Bowser exactly. I mean, like, he's got Koopalings, and he's got a girl Koopaling, but she's supposed to kind of be his daughter, I guess, so that would be kind of weird. So anyway, I thought some of the choices were strange. Also, this is just a silly little note, but so we got Yoshi's for knights.
Yeah.
And these sets like to sometimes duplicate people, but in the Mario universe, I don't think you have to duplicate people. For instance, Birdo, I don't know if Birdo is supposed to necessarily be just like one thing. Are there multiple Birdos? I don't know. So that's a thing. That's a thing maybe you could sort of get away with, but Yoshi's, why not just make them different colors?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Then, go to the next set. Why are we fighting with coin pawns?
Although that is kind of cool.
But there are lots of other things that you could get, right? Like coins are just things you collect. Why don't we make them mushrooms or fire flowers?
Yeah, that's fair.
They do look cool, though.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, we have turtle shells. And that's great.
That's cool.
Like, that's, you know...
Kind of would have preferred Goombas, but...
Well, we got Goombas, but they're the Rooks.
Oh. Huh. Fair enough.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I thought the choices were a little counterintuitive. I also think it's hilarious, by the way, that we have to have this, like, big, giant hole here just so that Bowser will fit in the box because he has such a giant back.
I think it's hilarious that he barely fits on his little coin that he sits on.
I got this open... And I popped the top off, and I said, "Oh, am I missing a piece?" And then, oh, that hole's there because he's enormous. Anyway, the detail on the figures is really nice. Everybody looks, you know, like who they're supposed to look like, but but you know, the detail's good and solid. I like the coloration. I'm happy with it. Everybody's expressive, and it's a neat set. What does the board look like?
Where?
What does the board look like? I haven't even gotten the board out yet. Let's find out. What does the board look like?
This is what the board looks like in the game of chess.
Thanks, Faye. You're always so good at filling in for us. I appreciate
right.
that. Okay, so here's the
cool.
Here's the chessboard. Now, usually what I do when I get chess sets like this.
Kart flag.
Oh yeah. usually what I do, and this is a decent board for this. What I usually do is I'll get a glass chessboard and I'll just put the pieces on it.
Yeah,
because I like glass chessboards and I have a couple, so I'll usually just take the pieces and put them on the glass chessboard.
You know what you could do? You could get a glass frame and frame that thing.
And frame that. Oh, I don't know why you would do that. So anyway, I think some of the choices are weird, but overall it's a really cool set.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I recommend today, and I want Vince's recommend. I want like 5 or 6 of Vince's recommend.
Well, that's all right. Just wait for a sale. Go get them.
Well, everybody, thanks as always for watching us recommend things. We will recommend something for you once again next week. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.